Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think probably we need no introductions. Johan Clausen, as you all know, we're going to have a lively discussion, I think, about Wikipedia in education, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I know you've all got a lot of things and opinions yourselves, and as and when you like, bring in members of the audience in to make their views known, and if you want to say anything, just raise your hand, I'll bring the microphone over, and you can make your point. So let's just kick off, and Johan, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Brian. Good afternoon and welcome to Murdoch University Dubai's great Wikipedia debate, which promises to be a very exciting event. And I base this notion on what I've witnessed over the past few days on campus. Two great teams, students and lecturers, planning, preparing, strategies and everything, surprises to come up with and to dig their heels in. A special word of welcome to the supporters who rocked up to witness this event, and a very special welcome to our participants, whom I shall introduce shortly. Before I do that, just a word of caution. This debate is not about winning an argument. It's about picking brains, a discussion that will hopefully produce plausible, sensible ideas based on a proper, open academic discourse. After all, we want to leave this venue feeling better informed about a contentious issue. And I see Jessica, I think she wants to win this debate. So does Maha, but I'll introduce them later. The issue, as communicated to both teams in the form of a motion, reads as follows. Wikipedia is a trusted, reliable online source for all-round academic purposes. Wikipedia is a trusted, reliable online source for all-round academic purposes. The team in support of this motion, 4 of Murdoch's brightest students, and I hope you'll show that today. Chintana Malala Sekera, Porav Shah, Jessica Rasic, and Jan Jamil. And the team who will argue against this motion, 3 of Murdoch's esteemed lecturers. Saba Siddiqui, Christina Popa, and Maha Sidhamed. And my name is Johan Clausen, the lucky moderator. Just briefly, the format of the debate. I shall start by asking each participant to briefly state his or her stance on the motion. And when I say briefly, I mean briefly, no longer than 30 seconds, please. Then the debate will start. Feel free to jump in, dig in. Keep it punchy, but don't get physical, please. After about 20 minutes of debating, I shall ask each participant to conclude by reasserting his or her stance, again in about 30 seconds. And audience, feel free to applaud where applicable, but no crowding or idle worshipping, please. I know you like both teams. That's it. Let's get started. And I'm going to start with Porav. You are in support of this motion. How come? Because Wikipedia itself acknowledges that it's not really a trusted source. There's lots of misinformation on it. Why are you in support of such a motion?
Why are you leading on the topic? You're supposed to be neutral.
I'm not debating with you, you're debating with them.
Anyway, for making my opening statement, all I'd like to say is, like Mr. Johan already said, it's a discussion, and it's a healthy discussion. Argument, for the sake of argument, is always, it can go on forever. But instead of pointing out the nitty-gritty details and picking on the little flaws that we may have, the bigger picture is that Wikipedia does have reliable information that we can use to get first an initial approach to getting knowledge. And if you can disprove that, hats off. So just try.
Jan?
I would say that we're supporting Wikipedia because the website in itself, its nature, the characteristics that make Wikipedia build on how it's trustworthy. Just the user-friendly feel that it gives off and the easy access that you can get to the information makes it a source for us to go to for all the academic purposes.
Chintana?
The Harvard Law Journal said that they came up with a format to cite Wikipedia. So if Harvard uses it, why can't any other university in the world?
Why should we use Harvard's examples?
Harvard is one of the most established universities in the world. If they say it's okay, then there shouldn't be any other university that questions that.
Noted. Jessica.
Wikipedia, basically I think all the students in here, whether they want to acknowledge or not, is pretty much been writing our essays since 2004, since its launch. And it's the encyclopedia that relies on volunteers to pen its nearly 4 million articles. That's a large number, and we will back up our reasons as to why we believe it's a trusted, reliable source further on in debate.
Thank you. That was very brief. Saba, surely you must have some sort of counter-argument.
I find it very interesting that you call Wikipedia trusted, reliable. I can understand user-friendly, and I can understand why such characteristics lead you to believe that it's trusted and reliable, because that's the impression that it's meant to give. But it doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of misinformation on Wikipedia. Wikipedia itself is actually not held accountable for the information that it provides you. It does not feel that it needs to provide you with accurate information. That's the end all of it.
Christina?
Coming from the academic side, I will say that I joined the other academics who also criticized Wikipedia for its perceived failure as a reliable source. And because Wikipedia editors may not have the degrees or other credentials generally recognized in academia. So I'm just going to prove that although maybe it will be a good point of start, it's not credible as a source, as a citable source.
Maha.
I will agree with Christina and with what some of the students have said. Yes, Wikipedia is a great platform to establish knowledge, to establish an understanding of a certain topic, but it is not a citable source for academia, especially on a tertiary level.
I'd like to say something here.
Of course, you're welcome.
Ma'am just said that Wikipedia is not a citable source. We are not arguing that. The topic is whether it's a trustworthy and reliable source to obtain information for academic purposes, which it is. None of us are arguing for letting any of you let us cite Wikipedia. So citation is out of question.
Neither does the motion say that.
Yeah, exactly. So citation should be left out of the argument.
All right.
Do you agree, Saba?
Okay, so you want to go with reliability and trust. Actually, I do agree with you on that. It is a very helpful source of knowledge. There is a lot of trivia available on Wikipedia.
You agreed already? That was a quick debate. Thank you.
Yes, but at the end of the day, it is not supposed to be your primary source of information, because it is literally not a primary source of information. It only provides you with secondary or second-hand information that is posted up by users that are not held accountable for what they are publishing. That's a problem. Therefore, it's a great place to start, but you cannot trust it. You have to research further on where that information came from.
Jessica, you have something to say.
I do, actually. I'm sure there's a famous saying that a lot of you would know, which is copying from one is plagiarism, but copying from many is research. Obviously, in an academic paper, you would expect that you wouldn't rely upon one source, whether it's a journal or whether it's Wikipedia. You would expect that you would have a range of sources. We have to remember that Wikipedia is an encyclopedia. It's a place to start for general information, to get general facts, and it's best used in its form of gaining quick information, a quick source of information, and an overview of the topic, which would then provide a list of useful sources that you can go and research yourself later. Only the lazy would sort of use it as a last word, as the crowning, thing for the Wikipedia.
Thank you, Jessica. Chintana, I want to ask you a question. You argue that that's what I deduce from the argument so far, that Wikipedia is a gateway to trusted sources.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
Are all the sources cited by Wikipedia trusted? Can we trust all those sources?
You can't, but like Ms. Saba said, that with any source you get, you always need to do further research, right? You always have to have a sort of follow-up. Just to clarify that what you're saying is absolutely correct. Now, Wikipedia, any article, say about World War II, you get the links at the bottom. You always double check that. And keep in mind that Wikipedia, yeah, okay, maybe they're not held accountable, but we expect that from Wikipedia. We do not expect that from academic journals, which is what you all say we should refer to in our essays. Academic journals have been consistently proven wrong. Nobel Prizes have been retracted because of what people have said.
Do you have any answer to that?
Can I just first answer Jess's remark on Jess's comment? She said that Wikipedia is an encyclopedia. However, researchers actually proven that Wikipedia does not fit the definition of a proper encyclopedia, but actually labeled it as a bag of trivia, considering the amount of content and the brevity of the information that's provided in Wikipedia. Now, going back to what Chintana has said about the journals not being credible. Now, the distinct difference between Wikipedia and academic sources is that idea of peer review. Because the information is not peer reviewed, that's why there is more trust and reliability in the information you receive from journals and other more credible academic sources.
Jan.
Maha, what would I would like to add to that is that just because something is peer-reviewed doesn't mean it's trusted. If anything, if there's error in peer-reviewed work, it only leads to more mistakes. Because just like we learned when there was false research done about the cold fusion, a lot of papers base their research on that, and you can't do that. So because you expect to trust in something that is supposedly peer-reviewed, you don't go and you don't go back and double-checking your sources as one would with Wikipedia. So someone who's extracted information from Wikipedia, or that's where they started, will probably end up with information that's much more accurate as someone who simply relied on text that was peer-reviewed.
What about sources referred to or cited by Wikipedia, journal articles as well? They also cite journal articles. If you say that not all journal articles or academic journals can be trusted, how can we trust the journal articles to which Wikipedia referred us?
Well, I think the question you're asking about the trustworthiness of journal articles, which as a result questions the trustworthiness of Wikipedia, is ultimately a very pessimistic attitude. Then we can't trust anything at all, any sort of information. Anyway, that apart, I've been listening to all these arguments, and the only thing that I have in my mind is that both my team and the opposition is deviating a lot. Maybe it's not, doesn't fit the exact definition of an encyclopedia. Maybe it's not a citable source. But can I borrow that for a second? The exact topic. Wikipedia is a trusted, reliable online source for all-rounded academic purposes, which it is. Nobody is citing it. It's not an encyclopedia. And when it comes to the word reliable, how do you define reliable? When you are doing an assignment, do any of you accept just one source? No, you ask for minimum 10 references. So none of us are going just to Wikipedia. And if Wikipedia was unreliable, the other 9 sources would show us that that one article on Wikipedia was wrong, and we wouldn't use it in that one scenario, that one situation. But the rest of the 99 times when Wikipedia is right, validated by the other 9 articles that we found, what's the problem?
What's the problem?
The problem is that not 90% of the, and it's not 90% of the content that's published on Wikipedia is actually accurate, and sometimes we have to question the validity of the information that's published on Wikipedia. So we go back to the issue about peer review. Yes, a lot of researchers have always been ongoing about discrediting another person's work or contesting to some other person's work. But the idea here is, who is the person publishing? Anonymity is questionable because we don't know the credibility, whether this person is an expert in their field in terms of the content that's published in Wikipedia, and that's the question of trust again.
Carrying on this issue, this is actually one of the love-hate relationships that I have with Wikipedia. It's because it passes the buck on to the users. It tells the users that you are responsible for checking up on this information that we are providing you. We don't take accountability for it. Whereas journal articles, they do take accountability. They say you can trust us. They say that we are providing with accurate information. And if they are proved wrong, they are penalized. They are punished for it. Wikipedia doesn't have that kind of system in place that would allow itself to be held in check for its own inaccuracies.
Let's just hear from...
So it comes down in the end to an issue of trust.
Let's just hear from Christina as well. Christina, you want to add something?